It is tempting to accuse Digital Extremes of being a bit on the nose with their latest disease-filled Warframe expansion. The world goes into lockdown for several months and up they pop at their annual TennoCon convention with Heart of Deimos, a massive pulsating update revolving around a trip to an infested moon. When I talked to studio manager Sheldon Carter after a behind-the-scenes demo, he says this wasn't exactly the way we started off 2020, but it was one of those things you started adapting and seeing where you want to go with it. We've always loved the open worlds in the game, so we were forging forwards with this. We just moved up our timeline on it so that we'd have it in time for this. He mentions the open world there, and we'll break that down in a second, but Heart of Deimos is much more than a gooey fleshscape on a moon of Mars. It brings the new player experience, the reworked opening to the game that will fold the insanely beautiful cinematic shown at last year's TennoCon into a new tutorial. Prepare for your 1,000-hour habit to begin there. The update also sees the 44th Warframe, Xaku, a community-created Warframe built on the theme of Broken Warframe. They are a skeletal void wisp clad in parts of 3 shattered warriors and capable of pulling enemy weapons into a floating arsenal, which has big Magneto in the X-Men films energy, which is the only energy I really care about. Let's kick off this quick feature tour with Helminth Chrysalis, a new customization system that finally sees the Helminth room reveal its full potential. For 4 years, this has been a glorified zit popping chamber, but now evolves into the means to inject Warframes with new abilities. These can be Helminth abilities that you earn by leveling up the alien growth, or, more excitingly, abilities from other Warframes. The process is not painless. You have to sacrifice a Warframe to the growth, letting it digest for a day before its ability can be injected. You'll need to feed Helminth before this can happen, which is basically just a chance to show off the adorable animations of the munching plant. Someone at Digital Extremes is clearly a big fan of Little Shop of Horrors, and just as Rick Moranis' potted plant demanded to be fed human flesh, so this one is a picky eater. Mixing up its diet and discovering its favoured foods will speed up the levelling. But the big headline here is transferring abilities between Warframes. In our demo, we see Excalibur gain Zolt shock power, for example. Before you get too carried away with dream combos, there are some limitations, and sensible ones at that. For starters, the team have picked one ability per Warframe to transfer, with no ultimates and no signature moves intrinsic to any particular frame's identity. You also can't feed primes to the Helminth, but usefully, once you have given it a frame to eat, it will remember that ability and let you inject it as many times as you want. Also, if you have any augments for that ability, you'll still be able to use those too. But even with those limits, I asked Sheldon if it's a nightmare to balance, and here's what he told me.
I mean, if you did that math, it becomes pretty insane, right? You've got 40 Warframe, well, not including primes, but still, right? You've got like 40-ish Warframes, all those abilities, now combine them all. I think it's going to be, I'm going to say, exciting to see what the players can do. We tried the obvious ones, and our QA guys just like, what are you doing? Right? So they've been trying their best, but I know there's going to be some outliers there.
If the idea of having a pulsating parasite on board gives you the willies, wait until you head to the Cambion drift on the second moon of Mars. Like Warframe's first 2 open world expansions, Heart of Deimos does appear quite early in your trip around the star chart, so beginners tempted in by the new player experience will get to visit Fleshworld relatively quickly. Whether they are ready for it is another question. Where the plains of Eidolon and Fortuna were vast spaces where you could easily flee, the words thrown around here by the team suggest a very different vibe. It's claustrophobic, dense and compact. Dipping into its hives beneath the surface is like lifting a paving slab in the back garden and looking in horror at the swarm of insect movement. There are new creatures aplenty, including web-weaving beasts who can chuck smaller enemies at you too. It's interesting to me to see another chunk of land added to the game. When Steve Sinclair, the creative director, revealed the Empyrean update at last year's TennoCon, he described it to me as an attempt to get away from just another expansion, another lump of content for players to visit and exhaust. And I wondered if that big thinking is felt here too. I asked Sheldon if here the Helminth customization is a similarly big idea, given that it ripples through the entire roster. And he actually sees it as indicative of the whole update, as he'll explain now.
And I think even when I look at Deimos in general, it's one of those ones where, you know, it's not the biggest open world we've ever made. It's actually, but it's the most, I guess it's the deepest, it's the most compact. There's so much stuff to go in and get into. And I feel like that's the same thing with the Helminth. Instead of like a broad system that's like, you know, that feels like, oh my God, it's all these different things at all these different places and changes everything. It does, but it changes it in a tight way. So it's kind of taking that same idea, but instead of being about breadth, I guess it's about details. So that's kind of, you know, where we went with Deimos in general, actually.
One such area where the details shine is in the rather ingenious take on the new time cycle. Instead of the traditional day-night, Deimos is watched over by two vast space worms, Vohm representing the moon and Vor, their sunny nemesis. One of these worms will poke its head out of a huge crater to govern the landscape, well until their rival worm appears and murders them in a spectacular shower of worm gore. This isn't just for you to sit there and gawp at, however. The worm that rules has a direct impact on the planet, with the aggressive orange variant increasing enemy aggression, for example. It's also suggested that whichever worm rules the roost will have an impact on the tunnels beneath the surface. Interestingly, these tunnels use Warframe's signature procedural generation to create shifting spaces to explore each time you revisit. Compared to the static crevices of previous open worlds, this feels like a smart way to get some of that deeper exploration mentioned by the team. And if that proves too much, you just return topside to see another worm get its face evaporated. Hooray! Of course, as with other open worlds, there are the usual activities to pass the time. Fishing will return, but this time the fish can fly. I'm assuming they'll tweak spearfishing for this, or you could just adopt the digital extremes method.
No, I guess you can't. Oh.
There'll be conservation too, though you might be tempted away from this given that the local dragonflies, or velocipods as they're called, can double up as organic K-drives, which is Warframe's answer to the hoverboard. During our demo, we're told we can choose to conserve or ride, which sounds like a weird sequel to Skate or Die. And while we're talking K-drives, this update finally adds combat to our radical skating escapades. Whether on a K-drive or local wildlife, you can fire your secondary weapon. This will of course be available in any location where you can ride a K-drive.
Mother, wake up!
If you're more interested in the underlying Warframe lore, then it looks like you'll be well served by this update. For starters, you've got the story told through the Heart of Deimos main missions, a tale that takes you into the home of the Entrati family, the one-time originators of void technologies, now turned into a range of houseplants, if Mother is anything to go by. As the infested burrow to the heart of the planet, they risk the very energy that powers your in-game existence, so probably get on top of that. But the Entrati home, the Necralis, also houses a major lore library explaining more about the Void, and digging into these riches is going to require you to raise your standing with one of the local syndicates. I really love this blend of two worlds, the shifting infestation hiding nuggets of a former civilization for you to uncover and marvel at. Not that the infestation are your only threat. As chaos has spread through Deimos, the Entrati's automated guards have turned against their masters. These are the Necramechs. Think steampunkish mechs but with a coffin at their heart. These are the toughest enemies you'll find in the update, thumping heroes into oblivion and hiding behind stats that you'll struggle to dent. We're told that there's not currently a boss monster in Heart of Deimos, like the orbs in the other open worlds, but these will not give you an easy ride. Well, that's not quite true. If you find a broken Necramech, you can technically take a ride, using your operator's transference to take control of the battered units you find across the planet, and they look absolutely superb, churning through infested and unleashing their own abilities and ultimates. The one we see has an artillery barrage that almost seems unfair to release on the local wildlife. And while these abandoned mechs are reserved for players with access to operators, newer players can get in on the action too, as you'll also be building your own personalised Necramech. This sounds quite similar to building mowers on Fortuna. Again, Syndicate standing will feed into this development, so there's further motivation to chum up with the plant people of Deimos. Watching this mech moment of the reveal did make me feel a tiny bit sad for the Warframe team. It's the kind of crazy feature that would have made the audience go wild at a traditional TennoCon. Obviously, the stream is a necessity in the current climate, but I'd like to imagine a few whoops were given at desks and from sofas. I didn't myself, I mean, come on, I'm English and far too reserved for that. Best of all, it has the rarest of things, an actual release date, August the 25th, and not just on PC, but all platforms. Given that Tenno Live is often a showcase for features that take months, if not years, to surface, that's pretty good going. Not only have they made Heart of Deimos in challenging circumstances, they've given us a clear timeline. It's a bit of a double miracle. So yes, set your coordinates to Deimos for August the 25th, and please do let us know what you make of the update news in the comments below. Why not tell us what Helminth creations you're going to cook up first? If you enjoyed this quick trip through the update, please do give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to Rock Paper Shotgun for more videos like it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you soon. Bye for now.